Alright, so in the first Luigi's Mansion, you collect treasure throughout the game, and the more treasure you have, the better mansion you get at the end. And in order to get the best mansion, there are two specific types of treasure that you must collect. One you get from watering a plant throughout the game, and the other one is for collecting all 50 boos. And well, I bring this all up because with the boos, there's actually a way you could screw this up. That being the fact that whenever you capture a boo, you could save the game immediately. But when it comes to the 50th boo, when you capture them, you actually save it right before you pick up the gem. And well, if you were to pick it up and not save again but then quit, you would just lose out on it. And well, I was a victim of this at least once, so I'm just wondering if anyone else did this very easy to make a mistake. Alright, so the 2001 version of Duke Nukem Forever leaked like a couple years ago, and obviously from this we were able to see a game that never was. But although the game never came out, I do wonder how many of its assets were reused in other Duke Nukem games, because specifically in this case, Duke's main weapon in this version of the game was a Golden Desert Eagle, which just so happens to be his starting weapon in Manhattan Project. So then my question becomes, is that a reused model straight from Forever, or at the very least a slightly altered version of it? Alright, so Dead Rising 2 Case West was an awesome team-up between the series' two best heroes, Frank West and Chuck Green. And yeah, this was a great little buddy team-up game between the two of them, with them working together as well as butting heads with their different personalities. But personally, one of my most favorite things to come from this team-up is this game's main menu. Well, because there's just something so cool about it. First, with it being very minimalist, with both Chuck and Frank scoping out the facility, and they're both scoping it out in different ways, with Chuck just standing there and Frank crouching down to get a picture of it, and the two of them are just both engulfed by shadows as the day is like ending with the red sky. And I could probably go on, but I'm running out of time here. But yeah, this was always one of my favorite main menus in a game. Alright, so in GTA games, whenever you got into a cop car, you were always given the option to do vigilante missions. These being where you needed to go into random parts of the map to take out criminals by shooting their car so they would blow up. And well, that's just doing it normally, but you also have the option to do it within a tank, which then obviously makes this whole entire mission trivial, since with the tank's turrets as well as just driving into cars, you blow them up instantly. And well, to be honest, it always felt like cheating doing this, with there virtually being no challenge within this. And well, on one hand, I think they never should have made the missions available within the tank, but on the other, tanks are very difficult to get in these games, so it kind of seems like a bonus reward. You know, I gotta say, it really sucked when growing up I didn't have a rumble pack with the N64, and feeling nothing happen in my hands when I played these games. But then many years later I actually managed to finally get my hands on one. And I gotta say, it's a real treat to finally be able to use this thing. To feel a proper reaction in my hands whenever firing a gun in GoldenEye, or crashing a car in a racing game, or when just simply attacking in Banjo-Kazooie or even Paper Mario. Yeah, no, this is definitely a really cool thing to finally have access to. Although I will say it does suck that it doesn't work with every single game, only a select few. But hey, that's still better than nothing. So I recently replayed the Thrillville games, and I played them backwards, playing Off the Rails first, then the original. And well, I remember Off the Rails being a decently lengthed game, or at least long enough not to make me question it, but unfortunately I can't say the same for the first game, because I was like genuinely surprised how quickly I made it through each park, beating them in like under 20 to 30 minutes, meaning you could beat like the entire game in under 3 hours, especially since the entire final park isn't really even used. And well, this just makes me wonder, with these two games coming out like a year after each other and being so similar, were these two games supposed to be at one point one bigger game that got split in half? Whether it be due to console limitations or them thinking that two games would sell better than just one. Alright, so a few years ago we got the remake for Battle for Bikini Bottom, and that was a great game to get a remake with all new graphics and bells and whistles and whatever else. And for as good as this is, I gotta say it's pretty disappointing that this game's spiritual successor, the movie game, never got a remake. And I just gotta question, why didn't it? I mean, it might not be as good as Battle for Bikini Bottom, but I still think it would be remake worthy. Especially since if they were to do this, I'd think they'd be able to sell them in like a double pack. Two legendary childhood classics together once again, but unfortunately it probably will never happen. So in Dead Rising 2, you had to get Zombrex for Katie, and of course you need to get one for her, whether it be finding one hidden within the mall or just straight up buying one. And well, looking back at this aspect of the game, it's honestly quite difficult, with you only being given like an in-game hour to get back to the security room and give it to her before she dies, especially early on when you can't move that fast. And well, I bring this all up because of how easy it is in comparison and off the record, since this time it's Frank who needs the Zombrex, and since you're playing as him, you could do it literally anywhere. You don't have to cut and run on whatever it is you're doing and go all the way back to the security room. Plus, it's much quicker because it's not in the form of a cutscene. He just injects it and boom, you're done. So when you play Paper Mario 2, there's several ways to get your health all the way back up, whether it be hitting a block or going to sleep in a house or just leveling up. And you'd expect all three of these options to restore your HP and FP all the way back up for you and all your partners. Well, that's true for the blocks and the sleeping, but oddly enough, when I replayed through the game, I learned that leveling up only does it for the partner you have out at the time. So only like one of your 7 partners of the game get health back whenever you level up. And I just gotta ask, why is that? I mean, it's just such an arbitrary decision, one that led to me losing out on a life shroom. Because again, why did only one partner get their health back? Or at least I remember it costing me a life shroom. I honestly couldn't find the footage. So in Black Ops 2, you had the ability to give other players points, which I mean sounds like a great thing to have, you know, give some points to some struggling people who need it. But I just gotta ask, why in God's name was it so convoluted to do this? Instead of just having a point where you put your money in and then pick it up, you instead have to go out of your way to buy the Galvanuckles. Then you need to hit it with the Galvanuckles to activate it, then put your money in, then there you go. And so because of this, instead of this being like a thing that you could do normally, it's just something you have to actually go out of your way to do, and it's just stupid that way. Plus the simple fact that because of this also becomes a very underutilized feature, or at least underutilized during normal play. I really hate the running theme in the Mega Man games of Dr. Wily being a twist villain. And I mean, I'd be perfectly fine with it if it was like once or twice, but it's like out of the 11 main games, like over half of them have it this way. And it just stops being a twist and honestly just gets annoying. With this starting in Mega Man 2 with that stupid alien stuff, and then in the third one he's supposed to be the good guy, but turns out he wasn't. And then in the fourth one you think it's the Russian guy, but nope, it's just Wily taking his daughter captive, and then the fifth one you think it's Proto Man, but nope, it's just a copy robot made by Dr. Wily again. And then you have the sixth one where they didn't even try. But thankfully after that game they stopped doing this. Actually, scratch that. The twist in Mega Man 10 is that he's the one who made the virus. Old habits die hard, I guess. Sonic 3D Blast is an odd game to say the least, with it being a 3D isometric view and you needing to save flickies in order to get to the end of the level. But simply put, because of how the game is played with this 3D space, it's very off-putting to many Sonic fans, me included for the longest time. But when I finally eventually actually sat down and properly played the game all the way through, I actually ended up liking it. And although I won't say it's like an amazing game or something, but it's just a unique experience in the series, more or less. Like, the only other game I could think of like this is Sonic Labyrinth, but everyone says that game sucks. And well, although I highly doubt this will ever happen, I would love to see Sega do another Sonic game like 3D Blast. Especially nowadays, since they wouldn't be restricted to only what the Genesis was capable of. Or the Saturn for that matter. So Scooby-Doo Unmasked had several hub worlds, and well, they were just neat little hub worlds that you could explore and like talk to characters or go to Shaggy and get your health up. But I gotta say that it's always bugged the hell out of me that for whatever reason, whenever you completed a section of the game, you weren't allowed to go back to the previous hub world. Like, it just seems like such an arbitrary decision not allowing you to go back into them. Especially more so with the fact that within these hub worlds are secrets that you can unlock, because if you get certain hidden clues, then you unlock certain areas within each hub world. So if you make it through the game without picking up certain clues, you can't go back and redeem them for the reward. You're just screwed. It just makes no sense. So the N64 was one of the first, if not the first console to have vibration in controllers, thanks to Nintendo creating the Rumble Pack that you would plug in. And for as cool as this was, there's kind of an unfortunate side to it as well. That being the simple fact that I believe this thing came out like a couple years after the N64 release, so not every single game was compatible with it. And I gotta say, it really sucks that one of the games that somehow did not make it onto the list was Blast Corps. I mean, the entire game is literally just blowing up buildings. That without vibration just doesn't seem right. It would have been the perfect combination. So in the early 2010s, Microsoft decided to jump in on the whole motion control fad with the release of the Kinect. And the Kinect would use its sensors in order to match your body, then your body would be the controller. And although it would go on to sell very well, the ultimate legacy of the Kinect is that it's just, well, hated, simply because the thing would virtually never work. So then you jump to today, where virtually no one would be playing with this thing. But I bring this all up because I think it's genuinely hilarious that although nobody's playing with it, they are still being used in a certain way, which is them being used as ghost hunting equipment. Like people would use the Kinect sensors in order to pick up, well, ghosts. And again, it's just bizarre to think that there's more people using it this way than it's intended use to play games with. Alright, so in the first Dead Rising game, Otis the janitor calls you up on the radio in order to give you new missions, but infamously, he will call you at like the worst of times. Like you'll be in a zombie horde or in the middle of a boss fight, then he'll call you up. And then if you actually decide to take his call, then get hurt, which stops it, he'll get mad at you for interrupting it. Yeah, no, with this, Capcom has easily made one of the most annoying characters in gaming history. And well, I bring this all up because they knew exactly what they were doing when they made him the first enemy that you go up against in Infinity Mode, letting you have a truly cathartic moment when all your pent-up anger against Otis gets all released at once. So before Duke Nukem went big with his third game as a first-person shooter, he had two previous games, both of which were 2D side-scrollers, and although I never played them, I have seen footage of them and they look like genuinely great games. So I just gotta ask, with 3D making its way onto many different consoles, why didn't the first two games ever get re-released? Or maybe even today giving it a remastered treatment, because I'm sure like it wouldn't take that much effort at all and I'm sure there's people who would buy it. Or wait, no, these games were released onto something else apparently? Some obscure console known as the Evercade, so they could put them on that but not mainstream consoles and PC. Sure, why not? Alright, so in Halo there are many different types of enemies, such as the grunts or the elites that run right out at you, but then on the other end you have the annoying jackals with their shields, which makes them a bitch to kill because they're fenced in, but I definitely gotta say, whenever you do actually manage to kill them, it's very satisfying, especially more so when you see their shield deactivate once they die, because it is a nice sight to see when the thing that pissed you off disappears. Alright, so when it comes to Fallout, there's always the argument of how this series was handled between its original creators and Bethesda. Like the idea that Bethesda have no clue what they're doing with it. And although I can't really comment on this because I haven't played the first two games, I will say out of the 3D ones there was always like a sticking point for me. That being the openings of the games. Like how over the top the beginnings of 3 and 4 are. Like how at the beginning of 3 you get one of the best weapons in the game, a Fat Man, and have to use it against a Super Mutant Brute, which is just way too big. Like comically oversized. And then at the beginning of 4 you get into the power armor, then you have to fight that gigantic Deathclaw, which is also way too big. And then you compare that to how subtle the opening to New Vegas is, where all you're shooting at are bottles or geckos, and then the big gun fight is just against a bunch of powder gangers. Yeah, there's nothing stupidly over the top to be found here. I wasn't a very bright kid, especially when it came to adult stuff that I really shouldn't have been playing in the first place. But regardless, there was always some instances in games that I didn't fully understand. Today's example being that one mission in San Andreas with Big Smoke, where he tries to get weed off the Vagos but they don't give it to him, so then you have to chase one of them down. And well, this mission always confused me for the longest time because he says he's picking up his cousin. And well, that's what I always thought the mission was, but then he would never pick up his cousin. And his cousin would never be mentioned again or appear later in the game. And yeah, as a kid that would always just confuse the hell out of me. With the way the video game industry has been going, it's been moving away from physical games. And with them all going digital, that means there's no more boxes that you need to go out and get with the games in them. And I just bring this up because we'll never see advertisements on boxes again. Like the reasons to buy a game, whether they be real or slimy in today's case. Because as you can see here in this arcade collection that I bought, it says that it has 30 plus games. And although this is a great collection with many great games, it's just that if you go to the back, you see every game that's included in this collection, and if you actually sit there and count them all, you get exactly 31. And well, this was always just so funny to me because they're technically correct, it has 30 plus games, but only by the scummiest of margins. And I guess my overall message is that it sucks we'll never see something as dumb as this ever again. Sonic CD is just such an odd game because on its own, and especially in comparison to the other classic games, there's just something off-kilter about it. Like with the game having the past, present, and future system where it's like more explorative and you're supposed to go into each one and check them out in order to destroy the robot generators or like find hidden secrets like that statue. And then there's like the weird little stuff like whenever you defeat enemies, instead of animals coming out, there's just flowers. Or the game just having two soundtracks for no real reason. But anyway, I bring this all up because I find it genuinely fascinating that this game, due to its odd stature, has gone on to become one of, if not the most divisive game in the Sonic series. Because it seems like people's opinion of this game is that either you really love it or really hate it. There's like no in between. So in Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 3, Treyarch re-released older maps, and I mean, it's great to have a convenient place where you could play all these older maps. It's just when you play them in these newer games, especially in Black Ops 3, they just feel not completely right to play. Like, one of the reasons, for me at least, is because they feel smaller than they normally would if you were playing the original version of them. Because like on Black Ops 3, the maps are normally like huge, and then you go back to these and they just seem so small in comparison. And then there's other reasons like the fact that the weapons weren't originally in that map, or especially the overpowered gobblegums making them way too easy. I don't know. I guess the bottom line is just that it's weird seeing the stuff from the newer games get integrated into the older maps, and it just doesn't feel right. For most maps, I should clarify, because I feel like Origins might be the one exception in my book. So at the beginning of the first Dead Rising, there is no zombies within the mall until the old woman goes out to try and get her dog. And well, I bring this up because I find it pretty funny how quickly the mall becomes infested with zombies. How these slow movers somehow manage to overrun the entire lobby, especially when you realize that they're funneling through a single doorway, when in reality the situation should have been a couple came in, you kill them, close the door, and barricade it again. But with Dead Rising 1 NPCs, that definitely wasn't gonna happen. Alright, so Comix Zone is a beat-em-up game for the Genesis, with fun gameplay, great music, and even better graphics, since it literally looks like you're playing a comic book. But despite it being a great game, it's kind of been lost to time, obscured, or just like forgotten about. That being due to the simple fact that Sega, for whatever reason, within the near 30 years of this game existing, never made a sequel to it. And well, I bring this all up because I just recently found out that apparently this game is getting a movie adaptation. And it's just really funny to think that for as long as this game's been around, it's getting a film adaptation before it gets a proper game sequel. I mean, how does something like that even happen? But then again, maybe all hope isn't completely lost, because if this movie ever comes out, maybe we'll finally get a sequel, or at the very least a remake or remaster of the original game. I mean, that'll definitely be better than nothing.